Hi, my name is Tony Whyman. I'm a senior lecturer at Cardiff School of Art and Design, and I teach on the Architectural Design and Technology programme.
Hi guys! Welcome to Spilling the AT,
where we will be spilling the tea about how it is to be an architecture, design and technology student at Cardiff Met.
For those who don't know us, I'm Flo.
And I'm Nika.
As you can see from the intro, today we have a special guest on our channel.
We decided to invite one of our lecturers at uni to answer some of the burning questions we've had, and maybe you did too.
Special guest, not Vincent.
It's the house animal. We hope you guys enjoy. Into the video.
I've been teaching at Cardiff Met for 20 years, so I was there to help set up the course in Architectural Design and Technology, and I've been involved ever since. That's an interesting question. The first thing I would say is that I believe them to be integrated, and I don't really want to consider them as separate entities. However, having said that, in our first year we do have a module that covers architectural design. It's actually called architectural design, and we do have a module called architectural technology where we cover the basics, and it's like primer module in first year to cover an introduction. But after that, in the remainder of the course, it is very much integrated, because really we don't make that distinction. For example, for me, a well-resolved detail is just as an important integral part of design as anything else. And a good piece of architecture can often be marred, let down by poor detailing. So for me, it is very much about the synergy between both aspects.
To answer this question, we must first think, what is design?
We do agree with Tony when he says that those two are more integrated, but we feel like it's more developed in second and probably third year, as we're going to go into it in a few months. So in first year, definitely the initial thought is the technical and the design are two separate things, but they do go together. At first, when you're so overwhelmed with the amount of information and the amount of stuff you learn, you kind of forget to see that little line.
I am an architect. I trained as an architect, and at that time there were no courses in architectural technology. So I came into architectural technology much later in my career, after spending several years working in practice as an architect. You can see from my face that was an awful long time ago. Looking back, I can say that the areas I did struggle with related more to do with lack of confidence, and I can see that in our students today. And one piece of advice I might impart would be to try and build your confidence whilst you are a student. It took me a while to work out that ultimately it's what you decide, or what decisions you make, or conclusions you come to, as long as it's backed up by a reasonable, well-educated background. So you've done research and you've come up with some ideas that you can back up with some solid research, and it may be that it's actually academically not as good or strong as it should be.
His answers to most of the questions, to all of the questions we ask, are really valid, because we might have worded it differently at first, but he kind of knew what we were asking about. So that's really interesting, and that kind of shows what kind of a student-tutor relationship Tony has with his students. And we think the relationships you make and relationships you surround yourself with are really important, especially while you study such a complicated course.
Yeah, you need someone that you could go to when you feel like you need that support and you have questions.
Yeah.
You don't want people that you're intimidated by. Like, they might be a bit scary in first year, but they come out of the shell in second year. And it's the same with all the tutors. I think it's not just like you meeting Tony today, but hopefully you'll meet some of our other tutors later on, and they're all
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I see lots of struggles. That's the nature of being a student on a course like ours. It isn't a straightforward, easy course. The kind of struggles I do see tend to revolve around students' comprehension, understanding relating to architectural detailing, which is a big part of what we do, and I can understand that. It took me an awful long time in my career to understand about detailing, certainly not as a student. So we have perhaps some really big expectations of our graduates to achieve some quite good stuff by the end of 3 years on our course. But certainly through the course, the struggle tends to be around detailing and understanding how things go together. It is challenging, but that's part of the challenge of doing a course like this.
So going back to Tony's question, or the question we asked Tony, what would you say that you struggle with on the course?
The things I struggle with change constantly. It's always on the basis, oh, I don't know it, I'm going to go and learn it.
Mm.
But the thing I struggle the most is understanding the vocabulary. Because I'm bilingual, sometimes some of the terms I learn, they sometimes collide with my first language. My first language is Polish, and yeah, sometimes they collide, but once I get it, it just kind of stays in my head. But sometimes I also struggle with saying the words. So when we have like presentations or something, and there are words that I know I'm struggling with, I need to repeat it constantly until I get it right, because otherwise I will just kind of freeze while doing the presentation. So what do you struggle with, Florence?
Something I struggled with, particularly in first year, and it's something that Tony spoke about, was confidence. I had no previous construction knowledge, and I felt like I wasn't sure what I should and shouldn't know when I first arrived on the course. And I was also really intimidated to ask for help, and I think that's something that a lot of students should not have to worry about. And I don't feel like the tutors are perfectly approachable. It's just something in myself. I feel like I'm like kind of bothering them. But this year's second year, I've kind of just gotten over it, just kind of changed my attitude in that I want to get the most out of my money and most out of my experience, and I kind of regret not doing it in first year, just like asking, because it makes it so much easier. Just like it just does, it just makes it easier to have that constant communication and know that you're doing well and you're on the right track, and it's kind of like your work's been looked over already and like discussed before you've already submitted it. But it does take time. It took me like the year to learn and grow from that.
There have been changes in the course, and not just our course, but all AT courses over the time I've been involved in it. Certainly the emphasis more on very sophisticated modelling, software modelling, is now preeminent, possibly at the expense of more basic understanding of building construction, because students have to spend so much time grappling with some very big bit of software to learn how to use it. See that as a challenge. But in terms of students' attitudes, I'm not sure about that. Well, as I said earlier, I've been doing it for 20 years, so naturally seen quite a few changes in that time. Software being one, obviously. We still did, so when we started the course back in the year 2000, we used AutoCAD, which is just a 2D drafting program. But we still had then a lot of traditional drawing board based work. So we had a mix of hand drawing, technical drawing, and AutoCAD. And that slowly evolved over the years, for better or worse, depending on what viewpoint. But we do have now predominantly software-based drawing, CAD drawing. We use Revit on our course, so it's three-dimensional modelling. I still sneak in some hand drawing. We've dispensed with drawing boards, but we do have some exercises which require you to use a scale rule, a pencil, and a bit of paper. Very old school. But that's how I was brought up with, and I think it's still an important skill. So though we don't teach technical drawing, we do expect students to engage in some hand drawing stuff. But yeah, that has swung away. But I know that employers are keen to see, if you go to an interview with a portfolio of work, to see some evidence of your own hand drawn sketch work. We're not talking about works of art here. We're talking about the ability to sort of think quickly, think with a pencil, to draw something down, to sort of think through ideas of details or whatever it might be, to sort of push things around on a bit of paper before committing to the computer. So yeah, that's definitely a skill that's still important. to an extent, but in my experience, that advantage soon recedes because they find that there are differences that they have to adjust. And also sometimes students come in with that kind of background with perhaps a false sense of security that they, done this, done that, and they sort of ease off a bit and potentially get overtaken by students who come straight from school or A-level. Yeah, there is a levelling out process that happens. That my experience as a student, I can remember when I was in university, again it was a long time ago, last century actually, when I started in 1979, there was an unusually large intake that year of mature students. Can't say that now, that's not very PC, but anyway, they were older than me, in their mid-20s, early 30s, and they come from architectural practice as technicians with several years experience behind them. And me, a mere 18-year-old from school, felt quite intimidated. But very soon, there was a sort of levelling out because there were things and qualities that we could bring to the table that they didn't have, and then we would share, and they would share with us their sort of technical knowledge. So there was a levelling out, and I think that is true today. You'll soon get a levelling out.
I had no previous construction knowledge, but I actually found that in the end it turned out to be really beneficial because I learned from scratch. I learned kind of what the tutors want because of the way they taught it. So that was actually quite useful. And then I found that my A-levels actually played into part of my dissertation. So I'm looking at biomimicry. So it has the maths and biology and like the art elements that I like. So it turned out well. So it shows that you can do anything and you can come onto the course if you have that passion and that ability to learn and like want to learn. Then I think that you can come from any background and I think you can do well.
Yeah.
Is that a trick question? I'd say 90% of our students go into the role of architectural technologist, usually working in mainstream architectural practice, private architectural practice, local authority work. What I have seen though is a little bit of a change, a bit of a shift in many ways to the job role opening up, and we have an increasing number of students, recent graduates or even students who are graduating straight from our course, going to work with contracting organisations, with construction companies, working in trainee roles as design managers, design coordinators. So there's definitely this sort of newish emerging role, this shift taking place, which is for the benefit of our graduates, of course, of architectural technology courses, because you offer so many different skills. So traditionally, straight to architectural practice, but in many cases, people are now looking elsewhere, looking to work with other organisations affiliated to the industry, rather than just straightforward architectural design. I alluded to that earlier actually, is that AT I think is broadening. So I'm seeing a lot of evidence of former students, graduates of our course, working for contractors, I mentioned earlier. So I think the skill sets of architectural technologists are really, really crucial and makes you very employable, either for working in traditional architectural practice in architectural teams with architects and other co-consultants like engineers and surveyors, but also now using the skill sets you have and the use of the software you have is about being employable in other areas with contractors in terms of sort of managerial posts as design coordinators, design managers. I think that's a huge growing area which is of interest. Well, I love everything about it. I mean, as a tutor, as a lecturer, the great reward I get is seeing people come into the course at the beginning with very little or no understanding of architecture, architectural design, architectural construction, and leaving in 3 years, and we're talking about 3 academic years, not even 3 calendar years, with brim full of abilities and knowledge and skills, then can get really good jobs. So that's very rewarding to see that. So that's a nice thing about it, really, from my perspective. But in the wider sense, for me, it's not about what I love about AT, it's what I love about architecture generally, because it's about creating buildings. AT, architecture technologies, is an important part of that. I do remember when I was a young architect, not quite qualified actually, I was preparing for my Part 3 final, so it takes 7 years to qualify as an architect, and this is like year 6, so you're working in practice. And I remember given a job to run and to see all the way through, only a small job, and did all the working drawings for it, did all the details myself, and then I was running the contract on site. But I can remember the early days going down to see a contract, JCBs and cranes, digging holes, pouring concrete, steel frame going up, and actually seeing my drawings come to life. I'll never forget that moment. And I think it's the same today, really. If you are involved in this, it's about the love of creating something that's going to get built, talking about real buildings. So if you can see what you produce being completed, I think you get, well, I certainly did get a real buzz from that. So I think that's something I do remember. It's a very strong feeling that's never gone away. So that's me, I think. I'm done. Switches off. Bye.
So that's all we have for you guys today.
We hope you liked it, and if you did, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm and leave a subscribe to support our channel, and click the little bell button to get notifications every Thursday when we upload a video.
We hope you enjoy our content. Stick around a bit longer for some bloopers.
Until next time.
Ha!
I'm waffling. That's too hard for me. By the way, I'm looking it up because the questions are on the screen up there. Because while my eyes are doing that, it's not an affliction.
It's gonna be like, we've got Max!
New merch. Don't tell me anything.
I'm not gonna. And that's how it went. It went downhill from there.
The future is now.